Hello, everyone, and welcome to our new episode of the UmiApp Startup Experience program, launched by the Winstars AI in collaboration with the Ministry of Digital Transformation and the Ukrainian Startup Foundation. The goal of our program is to introduce startups to the vast world of business, provide guidance, offer advice, and share insights to help them navigate the path of building their own companies. And today we have a special guest joining us, a co founder of Jooble, Roman Prokofiev.
Hello there. Well, not so new. I'm already 39, so let's just say I'm a bit pre-owned, if you will.
Still a new guest for our participants? Wonderful. Let's get started. And the first part of our interview consists of prepared questions for the speaker. We will ask a few questions that we typically ask at the beginning for all our guests, while our startup founders can take some time to think and prepare their own questions for the second part. Feel free to type them in the chat. For now, let's begin. And our first question is: how did the idea of creating your business and company came about?
Thank you for the question. The idea originated from a personal need. At the time, I was operationally involved with Jooble as its co-founder. Before that, I had another company, a software development firm, which provided IT solutions for pharmaceutical companies. I often found myself spending an incredible amount of time searching for candidates. I had a role as an IT implementation manager for the pharma market, which required a very niche expertise in both pharmaceutical and IT, and such specialists were quite rare. I'd go through dozens of CVs, and sometimes half a workday would pass before I found just two suitable CVs, not even two people. I thought to myself, this can't go on, it's highly inefficient. Around that time, my co founder approached me and said, "Hey, I've been thinking about a business idea. Let's create a new search engine." I replied, "I'm not sure who even reads the news anymore or why it's needed, but I'm exhausted from searching for talent. So why don't we build a CVE aggregator instead?" We also decided to include job listings. If I faced this problem, surely others did too. Initially, it wasn't a meticulously planned business idea aimed at a global domination or becoming a number one service. It was just two engineers trying to simplify their own lives and perhaps the lives of others who likely faced the same challenges. It was a solution to our own problem.
Mhm. So the idea initially came from solving your own problem. And at what stage did you decide to take this further, dive deeper, and develop this concept into a full fledged product?
From the very beginning, we wanted to build a company and create a product we were passionate about. The company you see today is completely different from our original vision. Many startups go through this process known as a pilot. We initially planned to aggregate CVs, then we realized that handling personal data requires careful consideration, especially given European regulations. Later, we discovered that our initial business model wasn't working as expected. To be precise, it was functional, but for the first 2 years, we operated at break even. We didn't generate any profit and barely managed to pay salaries. We struggled for 2 years to sell our product in its existing form, but it just wasn't taking off. We were not failing entirely, but we were not growing either. We earned just enough to cover payroll. Our breakthrough came unfortunately not because we were exceptionally smart, but due to the 2008 financial crisis. If you remember, the subprime mortgage crisis led companies to quickly downsize their workforce, and suddenly there was a shortage of candidates. Within a few months, our revenue dropped threefold, and we realized it was the end. In December 2008, my co founder and I had a discussion about letting everyone go. We thought of keeping only one admin to maintain the servers while waiting for the crisis to pass. That was plan A. Plan B was, listen, we've invested 2 years of our lives into this company. Let's take the last bit of money we have, put it all in, and try to go international. We decided to take the risk, and within 2 months, we realized this was the best decision we ever made. Expanding to international markets was the turning point for the company. Today we operate in 67 markets worldwide and generate revenue in Germany, the Netherlands, France, the United Kingdom, the USA, and even in more exotic locations like Paraguay and Costa Rica.
Amazing. So tell us, which were the first countries you expanded to when you started developing your
It's a
product?
bit embarrassing to admit now, but initially we focused on Russian speaking countries because we understood their language, making it easier for us to expand there. When we moved on to English speaking countries, which we also understood well, after that things got interesting. The first non Russian speaking country we entered was Poland. We had to launch our product in a language that no one of the team knew. Not a single person spoke Polish. Google Translate didn't exist back then either. It's hard to recall exactly how we managed it, but we realized that any language is essentially a set of formulas. You just need to put the right words in the right place and it will work. That's how we launched in Poland, and it was a great success. We didn't perform well in English speaking markets initially because we underestimated the competition. But in Poland, we quickly became one of the top 5 job search engines within just 6 months. This gave us the confidence and understanding that, yeah, we could do this. Over the next 2 years, we launched a new country every 2 weeks. We had a schedule in the office, and we knew that every 2 weeks we needed to go live in a new market. It was a period of rapid extension.
That's amazing, and it sounds really interesting. It's even more impressive how you take these challenges, especially considering the lack of advanced technologies back then. You couldn't simply translate a text from one language to another. So, can you tell us more about why this industry was so relevant in other countries as well? How did you manage to capture the interest of new markets?
For us, the problem from the user's perspective was obvious. What's the main issue for a job seeker? If we talk about Western markets, many major companies like Google, Apple, and Tesla don't typically post their job openings on job boards. They mostly publish them on their own websites. So, if I am a job seeker interested in, let's say, 20 companies, I had to visit 20 different websites to check their job listings. It's highly inconvenient. For instance, in the USA, there are over 30,000 websites that post job vacancies. Even smaller European countries like Austria, there are about 1,500 job boards and another 5 to 6,000 large companies with job postings. Without a search aggregator, it's simply inefficient. That's why we understood that our tool would simplify people's lives. It's easier and more convenient than the traditional way of visiting every single job board or browsing through dozens of company websites.
I completely agree with you. This is indeed a big problem because many job openings are not posted on the main search engines, and you might visit the top job boards, but in reality, they don't cover the full range of vacancies available. And many companies, especially the ones that are in the high demand, might not even post on these platforms.
Yes, this was surprising for us too. In Ukraine, everyone knows just a couple of major job sites, but what they list is only about 20% of the total job openings. That is, even on the biggest sites. If you are using just one or two job boards to look for work, you're missing out on 80% of the available positions. They exist, but you can see them.
Oh, wow, you even have a statistic like this. That's really interesting. So, how did you reach the point where you started earning your first revenue since things didn't go well initially and you had to invest? How did you eventually start making a profit?
There is only one way to make money by selling. There is no other method that has been invented. From day one, we were selling our product to users even before we officially registered the company. We didn't even know where to accept the first payments because we immediately built something and went out to sell it. There are only two sources of funding. You can ask for money from investors or from customers. In my opinion, customers are the best investors because when a client pays for your product, it means that it's valuable to someone.
Yes, I agree. We already gathered quite a few questions in the chat. To keep the conversation going, let's move on to the second part. These are the questions from our startups. They have been sending them in advance through our channel or writing them in the chat now. Let's continue. So here's the next question. We know that your business is currently active in many countries with a broad presence. Which country would you recommend for a beginner entrepreneur to register their business abroad?
Look, it's best to choose the jurisdiction closest to your customers, so it's most convenient for them. If you plan for your business to operate in Germany, it's better to register it in Germany. If your target market is the US, it's better to establish a Delaware LLC and operate there. It makes things simpler for your clients. If you're planning an international business that will cover multiple regions, then any jurisdiction in Europe or the US would work well. It mainly depends on the convenience for your customers. The jurisdictions we've used all operate under English common law. So, in terms of legal protection and business conduct, there are more expensive and less expensive options, but the legal framework is generally similar.
And how did you manage the challenge of opening new offices in different countries? You still had to hire new staff who were familiar with the local laws. Was that difficult?
No, it wasn't too challenging. Most countries operate under clear, understandable laws. From a financial accounting perspective, we follow IFRS, International Financial Reporting Standards. It's an international standard that applies equally everywhere. Of course, there are some minor specifics, but I would say to startups, don't worry about this at an early stage.
Thank you for the response. Let's go back a bit to the beginning of your journey. What were some of the common mistakes you faced when starting out? And could you give some advice to startups on how to avoid these pitfalls?
I can give advice from the perspective of an investor, as I invested a lot and have seen at least 100 startups go through this process. Here are the most common mistakes I see. Mistake number one: expanding into markets you don't understand. Startups often try to enter a market where they have no presence, mentally, physically, or contextually. For example, if you decide to launch a startup from Ukraine in Brazil, it's going to be tough, trust me. You won't know the laws, the culture, or the rules of the game. If you want to launch a startup from Ukraine into a foreign market, you need to have a presence there. By presence, I don't mean physically sitting there, but you need to be connected and understand the local landscape. A variation of this mistake is assuming that because you had some success in Ukraine, let's say you have 5 clients, you can now target the US market thinking it's a wealthier market. This is a big mistake. An experienced investor won't buy into this idea. You have two options: become the number one in your home market first, build a successful business, and become a clear leader. Once you achieve that, you can say, I've built a strong business here and I have a playbook. A playbook is an action plan on how you will replicate your business in a new market. But just because you became number one in your home country doesn't mean you can do the same elsewhere. Start building your business directly in the target market. The idea of I'm scared to enter the US market, so I'll practice in Ukraine first never works. It simply doesn't. What you built in Ukraine won't have much value in the eyes of investors if you are raising funds for other markets. It's not about Ukraine specifically. I could replace it with any other country. If you will build a startup in Poland, it doesn't automatically mean you can tackle the US market. Mistake number two: delaying investor engagement. Many startups think that they can just move forward slowly without involving investors. This is a mistake. All the biggest companies, Google, Apple, Tesla, eBay, and so on, were built with investor funding. Think of it in this way: if you are a Formula One driver, no matter how good you are, you still need fuel. Without fuel, you just turning the steering wheel in place and going nowhere. Mistake number three: hiring quickly just to solve immediate problems. This is the most common mistake I've seen. This is the most common mistake I've seen. Startups hire the first available person who can solve a specific problem right now. Maybe you need someone to build a database or write some code, and you bring in a friend or acquaintance to just fill the gap. This is a huge mistake. Successful startups hire strong people from the beginning. It might seem difficult because you don't have much money, but great companies are built by great people. The hiring of the first few employees is one of the most critical things a founder or founding team should focus on. I'll stop here for now, but I could go on indefinitely.
I understand you already have experience in this area, and it's great that you can help our startups learn what mistakes to avoid. Thank you for that. Now let's move on to the related question. How do you actually build a strong team? How important is partnership and what's the right approach to hiring employees?
There are many books and lectures on this topic, so I'm not sure how to answer this briefly in an interview like this. To be useful, I'll highlight the key points. In the early stages, it's crucial to share responsibility with the team from the very beginning. Don't act like you the boss who knows everything and is leading everyone somewhere. Instead, be honest. For example, say, look, we have 100,000 left in our account with our current burn rate. If we don't reach our targets, we'll need to find new jobs in 4 months. Many founders are afraid that their team will panic and leave if they reveal this information. They think they need to constantly motivate and inspire everyone, but you can't sustain that alone for long. If these are your people who truly care about what you're building and are inspired by it, believe me, they will give their all to make the company successful. So, my best advice for early stage startups is to be open with your team and share your concerns, which you undoubtedly have plenty of. Partnership is about support. The real value of a partner lies in their support. This applies whether we are talking about a co founder or employees. Support is essential.
Yes, I completely agree with you. Support is always crucial in any relationship. If a company is built on this foundation, it becomes one of its core values. I fully agree with this. It's as important as trust. When there is support, it naturally reinforces trust, which becomes evident from all sides, from employees, clients, friends, and others. It's all is very important. Now we have a question related more to technology. Given that such a large product always needs maintenance, it requires funding and resources, could you please share what technologies you use in your product?
To go through this would take an hour or two just to list everything. I don't think it's very important what specific technologies we use. Instead, I can share some lessons from our mistakes in implementing technology. One of our long standing issues, almost like a bad habit, was believing that we could build something from scratch that would be far superior to what's available on the market. The peak of this was when we developed our own in memory database. It gave us a level of performance that no existing database at the time could offer. It was an innovative breakthrough. However, there was one major problem. This innovation was almost impossible to support. Very few people understood how the entire system worked in depth. At one point, we had to abandon it. We ended up investing 4 times as much in server capacity to switch to Elasticsearch, a system that was slower but much easier to support. There were many specialists already familiar with Elasticsearch and databases in general. It's much easier to cover the costs of hardware than it is to find and pay for the expertise of specialized engineers who are nearly impossible to hire. The training time for a new engineer to understand our in house database was measured in months. In today's world, I actually believe that it is possible to build a tech startup without writing a single line of code. There are so many solutions and ready made products available, and with tools like GPT that can write code for you, it's even easier. Besides GPT, there are countless AI driven products that can generate code. I believe that outside of deep tech, technology has stopped being the deciding factor. The challenge now is figuring out how to build a product using existing tools that solves the customer's problem. This is much harder except for deep tech startups, which are quite rare.
And what about artificial intelligence? Right now, it's such a big trend and hot topic that everyone talks about across various industries. How do you use AI in your operations and how useful it is for your experience?
Well, asking whether artificial intelligence is useful is like asking if an axe is useful. An axe can be used to chop wood or to harm people. So AI is a tool and its usefulness depends on how you use it. In our company, about 80% of roles utilize AI in some capacity. Whether it's for writing emails or developers using Copilot for coding, when you can increase your productivity by 30-40% because AI handles all the routine tasks, it's a game changer. We've been using machine learning models since 2013, back when it wasn't mainstream. We were among the first to hire data scientists in Ukraine. We even recruited talent from other countries and focused on building models to offer non obvious recommendations, such as suggesting jobs that fit not just based on skills but also on related roles, like matching a job seeker with a psychology experience to an HR manager position, because there might be overlaps in the skill set.
So, in reality, the majority of work is still related to artificial intelligence. This is not surprising because, when used correctly, it really simplifies the work and allows for handling large amounts of data. I agree, the efficiency of process increased significantly even when AI is used personally, not just for business operations. It's really interesting. Could you share with us how you initially sold your product, what kind of advertising you used, and which methods were the most effective?
Our product is business to business, focused on selling to companies. So, in our case, at the early stages, the best approach was simply using the phone. You pick up the phone, make a call, and start selling to someone. This is something that many modern startups really dislike, talking to people and selling directly, especially over the phone. It sounds like a nightmare for many, but if your client is a company, the good old phone call and in person meetings still work wonderfully.
How effective is the contextual advertising or social media ads in promoting your products? Do you use these channels at all?
There is no one size fits all answer to this question. These are all tools, and their effectiveness depends on what your company does and how your target audience is. For client acquisition, we don't rely on contextual advertising. However, for attracting users, we spend over $10 million per year on contextual advertising because it works well for us and helps drive traffic to our platform. It's all about context. It depends heavily on what your business is, what your product offers, and what your users are. Based on that, you need to choose the right channels that will help you. If you decide to go on Facebook just because a friend who has a weight loss startup said that Google Ads didn't work for them but Facebook did, don't follow that advice blindly. You need to experiment, test different tools, and think about your users' daily routine. Figure out where and when it's best to engage them, what kind of message to use, and which channel would work best, whether it's contextual ads, phone calls, meetings, or even SMS. SMS marketing can still be effective. It all depends on your business model.
Yes, of course, and I completely agree that there is no universal instruction manual for everyone. Each company has its own path to success and different techniques works for different businesses. That's why it's interesting to learn how these processes vary across industries. This is likely why our participants are asking these questions. We have the next question from Vyacheslav, and it goes like this. How do you measure success at Jooble, and what methods do you use to track performance?
Jooble is our main product. In reality, though, there are 7 companies under the hood. Each company, depending on its stage of development, has different metrics for evaluation. For some, the key metric is the first revenue. For others, it's reaching the break even point, when the company can sustain itself. And for those at later stages, we look at metrics like compound annual growth rate, revenue growth, and profitability. The metrics you use to evaluate your business depend heavily on the stage you are at. In the very early stages, your primary metric should be customer development, talking to clients to understand if there is even a problem to solve. When you have a hypothesis about a problem and acquire your first customer, the main metric is retention. It's one thing if the customer pays once, but will they pay again? Did you actually solve their problem? From there, the goal is to expand from one customer to 5 to 10 and so on. It becomes more complex over time. There is not a single universal metric to declare your business a success or failure. It depends on the stage you are in. However, I can say that the metrics you choose and the goals you set have a significant impact on the company and what your team will focus on. For example, if you set a goal to increase revenue at any cost, it can quickly lead to a decline in the product quality. Why invest in equality when the only target is to hit a revenue number? You might prioritize short term gains and neglect the product's development. Therefore, balancing the right set of metrics is more of an art than a strict formula.
Yes, I completely agree. And we have another interesting question from Anastasia. When it comes to competitors, what is the right approach? Should you fight them or collaborate with them? And how do you stay relevant in the market?
I'd say it depends primarily on you as a founder and your personality. There are different paradigms that founders operate in, and there is no right or wrong here. They simply exist. For example, there are what they call red founders. For them, competition is everything. They draw energy from rivalry, beating and surpassing competitors in the driving force of the company. And that's great if it inspires the founder and the team. It creates a strong desire to win and become number one. Then there are founders who focus on values. They don't care much about competitors. It's not about competing, it's about serving the customer and creating value. They are not interested in what the competitors are doing. They might look at competitors' ideas occasionally and use them as a source of inspiration, but they are not driven by competition. Lastly, there are mission driven founders. They have a vision to change something in the world, and if partnering with competitors helps serve that mission, then they are open to it. They serve a greater purpose and they will work with anyone who aligns with their mission. So, how you view your competitors depends on where you draw your energy from. Do you want to fight them, collaborate with them, or use them as a source of ideas?
I think all of these strategies can be useful at different times. Sometimes it's worth fighting, and other times it's worth observing what interesting things they're coming up with. It can be valuable just for analysis to continuously identify weaknesses in your own work and improve while also finding new paths for growth. That's why you can ensure you're delivering the maximum value for your clients, but in reality, it's not an easy task.
At the same time, it's very important to use your competitors as a source of inspiration because their teams are full of smart people who are also trying to solve a similar problem. However, if you don't understand where a certain solution comes from or why it was implemented and you can just try to copy it, you will never succeed. If you see something a competitor is doing and think, they are idiots, take a moment and reconsider maybe it's you who don't understand something. On the other hand, if you really like a particular solution, you should also ask yourself, do you want to copy it because you like it or because it's genuinely beneficial for the customer? This is not always an obvious answer.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes it may seem the opposite. You might think it's useful and great, but in reality, only a small percentage of users might actually benefit from that feature, while the majority don't find it valuable. I agree that the hardest part in the often identifying the true pain point, the specific problem of user. Many people say that if you find the precise target or pain point, it becomes much easier to create a solution that will help you make money in the future. If it's just an idea without any validation, then how can you really sell this product to everyone?
Exactly.
That's where the cultural challenges lies.
Every company starts with conversations with potential customers, not by writing code, designing mockups, creating PowerPoint presentations, or building a website in Canva, but through discussions. Talk to 50 potential clients and ask them how they solve their problem without your product, because they are solving it somehow. If it's truly a pain point for them, they have a way to address it. It might be a less convenient method or more expensive than what you plan to offer, but they are definitely finding a solution. If they are not addressing it at all, then it's not a problem for them and you are missing the mark.
Absolutely. Thank you for this additional piece of advice. So, startups, if you haven't established this process yet, now is your chance to do so. Great tip. Okay, we have another question about your product. We know that Jooble not only helps candidates search for jobs, but also assist employers in finding suitable candidates. Can you tell us how that works?
Yes, in Ukraine we have a product called Ready to Recruit. This allows us to assist employers by leveraging our extensive database of candidates, using a matching tool and still involving a significant amount of manual work. We start by gathering the employer's request, what kind of candidates they need and what criteria are important to them. Then we contact the candidates directly, often via phone calls. People still respond better to a human voice, and speaking with a recruiter over the phone helps candidates open up and share more information. Using our database, our matching algorithm, and our recruiters who speak with the candidates, we can fill positions effectively. This way, we provide candidates for interviews who are a strong match based on the key criteria set by the employer. Every month, we provide about 1,000 candidates for interviews. In some cases, clients have 10 open positions and we provide 10 candidates, all of whom are a perfect fit and ready for the role.
And what about the companies that are looking for employees themselves? Do they reach out to you directly or do they have to find them as potential clients or partners?
If you are working in business to business sales, it's always a pull strategy. You have to actively pursue these clients, relying on the hope that someone will just remember you and come knocking at your door, unless you are Google or Oracle, is not the way to go. You need to focus on sales. This is another common mistake startups make. My favorite one is my product is so amazing that people will just spread the word about it. Try to recall a product that you actually recommended to someone. There are a few, but they are rare. For the majority, you have to build a sales and marketing strategy. Period. That's it.
Absolutely no argument there. Sales are the foundation of success. We have a question from Metro. He is interested if there is a specific industry that's currently facing the biggest talent shortage globally. Do you have any insight on this?
It heavily depends on the country. In each country, the situation varies. For instance, in the largest markets like the US, there is a high demand for medical professionals and teachers. These two fields consistently face a shortage of a qualified personnel. Beyond that, it depends on the specific country. If we talk about a mega trend, we see a significant labor shortage across the Europe economies, which is already evident, and in 5-7 years this shortage will become catastrophic, unlike anything the world has seen before. This is due to people living longer, fewer births, and a general demographic decline. It's inevitable. It's not a hypothesis, but a clear trend. There will be more elderly people and fewer younger people. The entire European Union, led by Germany as the economic engine, will feel a severe impact. Right now, the only visible solution is increased migration, but it's not a comprehensive fix. We see this trend already affecting Ukraine, with approximately 6 million people leaving the country. Other countries are eager to assimilate them because they are workers who can support their local economies.
Mhm. By the way, what's the percentage of technical versus non-technical job vacancies? Which ones are more prevalent?
Globally, when we talk about the world job market, about 68% of vacancies fall under the blue collar category. The blue collar jobs involve manual labor. These include drivers, cooks, plumbers, and construction workers. Essentially, two-thirds of the global workforce are people who work with their hands. The white-collar jobs, those we associate with office workers using laptops, make up only about one-third. That's the reality.
Mhm. From my experience in Ukraine, but it's a bit different, there is a demand for engineers and technical specialists, but there is also a significant need for skilled labor in simpler trades like cooks, plumbers, and electricians. This is why we see free training programs emerging for those high demand professionals, focusing on areas where there is a great shortage of workers.
In Ukraine, there is a shortage of all kinds of specialists across the board. The demographic situation is catastrophic, exacerbated by the fact that many people have left the country. Additionally, many men are staying home, avoiding going outside, which negatively impacts the labor force. Even IT specialists are feeling the effects, despite the fact that the IT market in Ukraine had been growing consistently until last year. This year looks like it might see a decline. With the market shrinking, it's a challenging situation.
Yes, I agree with you. We are facing a real crisis and it's hard to make any predictions right now. But do you have any forecast on what might happen with the job market in Ukraine? What should we expect?
We are at a turning point, and the primary factor is the ongoing war and Russian aggression. The dynamics of the labor market will depend heavily on the military situation and our progress. The labor market is essentially an economic indicator. When the economy grows, the labor market demands more workers. When it contracts, unemployment rises. When it contracts, unemployment rises. For the economy to grow, we need investments. What drives investments? The investors' perception of the region's prospects, including Ukraine. When a country is at war, it is clear that investors are less inclined to put their money in. The situation is difficult to forecast as long as the war
Yes, that's a
continues.
reality we're dealing with. But is there a particular sector that's still worth investing in right now?
Invest in what you understand. If you don't understand a sector, don't invest in it. That's the golden rule of investing.
Simple, but actually very important advice. I agree. When it comes to startups, they often look for investors. From your experience, could you share some tips on how to find investors? What should be done and what should be avoided?
The first thing you need to do is understand what you are looking for, specifically how much money you need. Based on that, you should create a long list of investors who typically invest with checks of that size. For example, if an investor manages a fund of 100 million, they won't be interested in making a 100,000 investment. Why? Because for a fund of that size, making a small investment won't move the needle. Let's say they invest 1 million and it grows tenfold to 10 million. Even then, it only increases the fund's value by 10%, but if they invest 10 million and it grows tenfold, they return 100 million, effectively doubling the farm's value. So every investor has a specific check size they typically work with to ensure their successful investments make a noticeable impact. If an investor has a 10 million fund, if an investor has a 10 million fund, even a 10x return on a 50,000 investment wouldn't be significant in their portfolio. This is why they don't make such small investments. The first step is to identify the check size the investor usually deals with. The second step is to research what industries the investor has previously invested in and what they are interested in. Every investor has areas they understand well and areas they don't. For example, I don't invest in gaming or blockchain, it's far from my expertise. No matter how great your idea is, if it's in these fields, I will say no. No matter how great your idea is, if it's in these fields, I will say no. However, if you come to me with an e-commerce project, an outsourcing business, or something specialized in a field I know well, I'd be interested to have a conversation. The third point is that fundraising is a lot of hard work. When you are raising a round and realize you need investment, half of your time as a founder should be dedicated to finding those investors. It's similar to cold sales. You need to make 100 contacts. If you have done your research and segment it properly, you'll get responses from around 20 of them. Out of those 20, about 5 will show interest, and then 2 might provide term sheets. From these 2-3 offers, you can negotiate the best conditions.
Great. Thank you so much for this final bit of motivation and advice. Once again, I want to express our gratitude to you, Roman, for participating today. It was a real pleasure talking with you. You shared insights that are crucial for our startups, from investment strategies and getting started to promoting their business and finding clients. I believe that will be invaluable for our startup. We appreciate your support for a project like this. I also like to thank all of our participants who joined us today, submitted their questions, and showed genuine interest in our current development of our economy. It's really valuable. We also invite everyone to join us for the upcoming episodes of our program. Watch on YouTube, share with your friends, like and comment. We look forward to welcoming new participants. We have many more exciting guests for you, so we wish everyone a great day and hope to see you again soon.